Imagine being such a completely obsessed fan of country music that you literally sneak past security at the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, well, yeah. Like the highly secure, heavily guarded Grand Ole Opry.
Exactly. You just sneak in to do historical research. You want to be so close to the legends, right at the epicenter of the music you love, that you end up getting caught.
Which is pretty much a worst-case scenario.
Right. And you get officially slapped with a permanent trespassing ban by, the very institution you worship.
It really is like the ultimate act of loving something so intensely that it actually has to issue a restraining order against you.
Yeah, literally locked out of the temple.
Totally.
But then, fast forward just a handful of years later, not only is that permanent trespassing ban officially lifted, but the institution that aggressively kick you out turns around and hands you the keys to the kingdom.
They make you a member.
Yeah, they make you one of the youngest artists ever inducted into their sacred ranks.
I mean, that trajectory just defies all standard industry logic. Usually when we look at how someone breaks into a highly exclusive, deeply traditional institution like Nashville, it's a story of polite handshakes.
Right, playing by the rules.
Exactly, playing by the unwritten rules, quietly waiting your turn at the back of the line, not getting a rap sheet.
And that brings us to the subject of today's deep dive. We are talking about Frederick Dierks Bentley.
A name everyone knows.
Oh, absolutely. If you've listened to the radio, been to a tailgate, or, walked into a bar anytime in the last 2 decades, you absolutely know the voice.
He's the guy who racked up 18 #1 country hits.
18. But as we've been going through the sources for this, we realize he's not just some standard issue guy in a cowboy hat who got engineered in a boardroom.
No, not at all.
We are talking about a former tape librarian who turned into a stadium headliner. We're talking about a licensed pilot flying his own multi-million-dollar jets.
And a guy who secretly fronts a 1990s parody band in disguise.
Which is just wild. He is basically a walking contradiction.
Yeah, he really is. He's managed to straddle this crazy line between a deep, almost academic reverence for the past and, total reckless creative freedom.
So that is our mission today. We are inviting you, the listener, along for this deep dive to map out the surprising, story-driven biography of an Arizona kid who immersed himself so deeply in Nashville's history that he ended up completely reshaping its future.
And to really understand how he broke into the highest levels of the country music industry, we first have to look at how he literally broke into the Grand Ole Opry.
Which serves as this brilliant lens for his entire career, honestly, because, he didn't come from the traditional Southern dirt road background that you might expect from a country music purist.
Right. He wasn't exactly raised in the shadow of the Smoky Mountains.
Not at all. He was actually born in 1975 in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh.
Yeah, and his dad, Leon, was a bank vice president and a World War II veteran. And a fun fact here, the name Dierks, which he obviously uses as his first name publicly, is actually his maternal great-grandmother's Sioux name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. His given first name is Frederick.
I mean, that points to a really strong sense of family history right from the start, anchoring him to his roots.
Yeah, for sure.
But we also had to acknowledge that his upbringing was incredibly structured, like elite structure.
Right. Very different from the usual country backstory.
Exactly. We're looking at a kid who attended the Culver Summer Schools and Camps in Indiana, graduated from the highly prestigious Lawrenceville School in New Jersey in 1993, spent a year at the University of Vermont, and then finally transferred to Vanderbilt University in Nashville.
Where he graduated in 1997.
Right. I mean, that is the resume of a future hedge fund manager or, like, a corporate lawyer.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a guy playing sweaty, beer-soaked bluegrass bars.
But that move to Nashville at age 18 was the absolute catalyst. He wasn't just a college kid looking for a good time on the weekends. He actually went out and got a job at the Nashville Network.
TNN.
Yeah, TNN. Working in their tape library. He was literally spending his days in a windowless room cataloging archival footage of historic country music performances.
And that tape library job, I mean, it is the master key to understanding his musical architecture.
How so?
Well, he wasn't just casually observing the music scene as a fan. He was academically studying its DNA. He was watching the greats, studying how they built a song, how they delivered a lyric, and how they commanded a stage.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I was thinking about this tape library job. It feels exactly like a young blockbuster movie director spending their formative years locked in a basement, studying original, unedited Alfred Hitchcock film reels.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, right. Like, you aren't just sitting back eating popcorn and watching the movie. You are meticulously analyzing the cuts, the lighting choices, the pacing. Bentley was watching the raw, unedited feed of country music history day in and day out.
He was absorbing the absolute bedrock of the genre, and at night, he was taking that theoretical knowledge and applying it.
Right, but he wasn't taking it to the neon-soaked, rowdy tourist bars of Lower Broadway where people just want to hear loud cover songs.
No, he was immersing himself in places like the Station Inn, which is this sacred, purist acoustic circle for the local bluegrass scene.
Because he had cataloged the greats all day, so he knew the difference between a fleeting, manufactured trend and timeless, deeply rooted music.
Exactly. Which brings us back to the trespassing.
Oh, right, the band.
Yeah, he's so intensely hungry for this history that he, sneaks onto the Opry House grounds to do more research and gets handed a permanent ban.
It's such a hilarious image, but it also shows a guy who simply could not wait for permission to be part of the culture. And that exact same impatience, that relentless grit, is what really defines the next major phase of his life.
Because all that obsessive historical research in the tape library couldn't stay theoretical forever. He had to actually make his own music.
Right. Moving from the tape library to the recording studio is, it's a brutal wake-up call for any artist.
Oh, absolutely. You know the history perfectly. You know exactly what greatness sounds like in your head. And now you have to step up to a microphone and actually measure up to it.
And rather than wait for the massive Nashville machine to pick him out of a lineup, he bets on himself. The sources note that from 1999 to 2001, he's collaborating heavily with a writer named Mike Ward.
Yeah, they're really grinding it out.
Grinding it out, writing songs, and getting into B&A Studios in Franklin, Tennessee, which is one of those legendary rooms where the paint practically sweats country history. Bentley ends up releasing his debut album, Don't Leave Me in Love, in 2001. But he does it entirely independently. He self-funds the whole thing and distributes it on his own label, Dangling Rope Records.
Which requires serious context for the listener.
Yeah.
Because, in the music industry of 2001, before streaming existed, before Spotify playlists, before social media made independent distribution as easy as clicking a button, putting out an independent record was a massive physical undertaking.
Yeah, you had to really want it.
You had to pay for the studio time, pay for the physical CD pressing, load boxes of albums into the trunk of your car, and literally drive them to radio stations begging DJs to spin them.
Wait, I have to stop you there and push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Is this really a gritty underdog story? Like, the guy has a Vanderbilt degree and a dad who was a bank vice president, wasn't self-funding this record, just, I don't know, a rich kid buying his way to the front of the line because he was too impatient to wait for a real label?
It's easy to look at it that way, and it's a fair question. But you have to understand how the corporate boardrooms of Music Row operated back in 2001. Money alone couldn't buy you radio play if the music wasn't authentic.
Really? Even with that kind of backing?
Yeah. You could have deep pockets and press 10,000 CDs, but if the local radio programmer smelled a manufactured vanity project, those CDs just became very expensive drink coasters. What self-funding did was remove the theoretical risk for a major label. When an artist walks into a boardroom and says, "I believe in this so much that I took the financial hit to prove the concept," it completely changes the dynamic.
He wasn't asking a label to bend his sound from scratch.
Right. He was asking them to amplify a sound he had already built, tested, and paid for.
And amplify it they did. That independent hustle directly led to a deal with Capitol Nashville. In 2003, they released his self-titled debut, and the first single, what was I thinking, just explodes.
#1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart.
Right out of the gate. And he follows that up in 2005 with the platinum-certified album Modern Day Drifter, which gives him massive, career-defining hits like Come a Little Closer and Settle for a Slowdown.
The velocity of that ascent is just staggering. In the span of a few short years, he goes from an independent artist hawking his own CDs out of a trunk to a multi-platinum mainstream star.
But the absolute peak of this era, the most beautiful, poetic, full-circle moment we found in the sources, happens in 2005. He wins the CMA Horizon Award, which is basically the industry's best new artist trophy.
Yeah.
And that exact same year, the Grand Ole Opry, the same institution that had banned him for trespassing and told him to never come back, not only lifts the ban, but they invite him to become a full-fledged member.
I love that. They literally went from security, escort this kid off the property immediately, to please come take your permanent celebrated place in our sacred circle.
He was officially inducted on October 1st, 2005, making him the third youngest member at the time. Yeah, standing in line right behind Carrie Underwood and Josh Turner. It's the ultimate vindication of the tape librarian.
But here's where the story usually gets boring for most artists. Because once they reach that mountaintop, once they have the platinum plaques on the wall and the Opry membership, they tend to freeze.
Right, they find a formula that works.
Exactly, a highly lucrative formula, and they just iterate on it for the next decade because it's financially safe and predictable.
You find the lane that prints money, and you stay securely in it. But Bentley is way too restless for that, which leads us into this fascinating middle era of his career where he starts taking these massive, completely unexpected creative left turns.
He essentially risks alienating the massive mainstream audience he just spent years building, all to chase his own creative curiosities.
It starts in 2010. He's a stadium-level country star, and what does he do? He pivots and releases a dedicated bluegrass album called Up on the Ridge.
A direct return to those nights at the Station Inn.
Exactly. And then, 2 years later in 2012, he releases an album called Home, which reveals this intense, almost agonizing perfectionism. We found a direct quote from him about the making of that record that just blew me away.
Oh, the song quote.
Yeah. He said, "I wrote too many songs. I wrote 70. I wrote a lot. There's 64 that are never going to see the light of day. That's 64 days that I can't get back."
I mean, think about your own career for a second, or a project you, the listener, are working on right now. Imagine spending 2 solid months, 64 entire days, working on something, realizing it's only good and not great, and having the stomach to just throw it in the trash.
It's like panning for gold.
Exactly. He was willing to sift through 64 days of heavy, useless dirt just to find the 6 ounces of gold that actually made it onto the record.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because you have the serious, grounded bluegrass roots. You have the intense perfectionist agonizing over 70 songs to find a few good ones. And then you have his 1990s country parody side project, Hot Country Nights.
This is hands down one of the best anomalies in modern music history. I love it so much.
Bentley puts on a ridiculous wig, some cheap wraparound sunglasses, and adopts the alter ego Doug Douglason.
That's so good.
He and his road band pretend to be this washed-up, hyper-exaggerated 1990s country band. And the thing is, it's not just a private joke they play in the dressing room. They actually signed a real, legitimate record deal with Universal Music Group Nashville in 2020.
A real record deal for a joke band.
Yes. They released a single called Pick Her Up, which actually features real-life country legend Travis Tritt singing right alongside Doug Douglason. It's like a Saturday Night Live sketch act accidentally winning a Grammy.
It sounds totally absurd, but if we look at the psychology of high-performing artists, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, operating at the highest levels of a high-pressure industry requires creative pressure valves. The Bluegrass album, Up on the Ridge, that grounds him. It reminds him of his roots and the purity of the tape library. But Doug Douglason and the Hot Country Nights, that allows him to completely blow off steam. It lets him embrace the utter absurdity of the entertainment business, keeping him from burning out under the very serious, heavy spotlight of being Dierks Bentley, country superstar.
So it's like he's built his own perfectly balanced ecosystem. He has the mainstream stadium lane, the traditional roots lane, and the pure comedy lane. And the wild thing is, none of these creative side quests derailed his mainstream success.
No.
In fact, the sources suggest they fueled it, propelling him into a wildly dominant run through the 2010s and 2020s.
Because he never lost touch with what the massive stadium audiences wanted to hear.
Yeah.
He just absolutely refused to be confined by those expectations.
He racks up a total of 18 #1 hits. He's putting out these massive, rowdy, escapist party anthems like Drunk on a Plane in 2014 and Somewhere on a Beach in 2016.
Huge hits.
Massive. If you're listening to this right now, I guarantee those songs defined an entire summer for you at some point. But then, as we look at his most recent work, like his 2025 album Broken Branches, he's still pushing the boundaries.
Definitely.
There's a single from February 2025 called She Hates Me, And the sources note that it remarkably blends the sounds of traditional country legend Keith Whitley with the rock bands Weezer and Puddle of Mudd.
I mean, it sounds like a completely chaotic recipe on paper. Keith Whitley meets 2001 post-grunge rock.
Right.
But because of his foundational knowledge from those tape library days, he understands the underlying architecture of a song well enough to actually make those disparate genres hold hands.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He takes the heavy, distorted, driving power chords of a post-grunge rock track, but layers a traditional crying pedal steel guitar right over the top of it and sings it with a classic Southern drawl. He knows the mechanics of music so intimately that he can fuse them together without it sounding like a mess.
And while he's doing all of this wild genre blending and playing in parody alter egos, his personal life remains incredibly grounded. He married Cassidy Black in Mexico back in 2005. They have 3 kids, and he doesn't hide them from his art.
Which is really refreshing.
Yeah, his daughter actually makes a vocal appearance on the song Thinking of You from the Home album, and his son is featured heavily in the music video for his 2019 single, Living.
Which is such a sharp, beautiful contrast to the guy singing drunk on a plane.
Right. So what does this all mean? How does an artist successfully balance singing these rowdy, drink-in-your-hand escapist anthems while simultaneously heavily featuring his kids and his very real role as a family man in his other work?
That's the big question.
Usually the music industry forces you to pick a demographic lane. Either you're the perpetual bachelor party guy singing about tailgates, or you're the wholesome family man singing about a rocking chair on the porch.
But I think it tells us exactly what modern audiences actually want. We've moved far past the era where fans want their artists to be one-dimensional caricatures.
Yeah, that's very true.
Modern listeners crave multi-dimensional authenticity. Bentley survives and thrives through the rapidly changing eras of country music precisely because he shows the audience his real, complicated life. He acknowledges the complexity of being a human being.
You don't have to be just one thing.
Right. You can be a deeply devoted father who loves his kids, and you can also be a guy who wants to have a few beers on a beach and listen to loud 90s country. They aren't mutually exclusive.
And that need for total control and multidimensional living doesn't just stop when he walks off the stage. The music industry is chaotic, so to find total focus, he turns to an environment where you literally cannot afford to be distracted.
Right, the flying.
Yes. When he needs to get away from it all, he doesn't just go for a long drive. Bentley holds a private pilot license. And he doesn't just fly a little single-engine propeller plane on the weekends. He owns a Cirrus SR-22T, and he is fully certified to fly a Cessna Citation CJ4.
We really need to underline what that actually means. A Cessna Citation CJ4 is a multi-million-dollar, multi-engine jet.
It's a huge deal.
It requires intense, rigorous technical proficiency to operate. When you are flying a jet like that, you cannot be distracted by record sales or set lists or industry politics or a bad review. You have to be entirely 100% present in the cockpit.
The stakes are literal life and death.
Exactly. It requires a level of precision and focus that entirely washes away the noise and the ego of celebrity.
It's the ultimate perspective shift. You look down and everything that felt so heavy and overwhelming on the ground looks incredibly small. It really tracks with his entire personality, the need to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, he really does.
Whether that's synthesizing the entire history of country music in a windowless tape library or looking at the actual geography of the earth from tens of thousands of feet in the air.
He didn't treat country music history as a museum exhibit to be preserved under glass. He treated it as a solid foundation to build a skyscraper on.
So, as we pull all these threads together, the takeaway here is just staggering. We are looking at the incredible, improbable arc of an 18-year-old kid sitting in a room, cataloging the performances of country music legends, who eventually steps out of that room and becomes a legend himself.
It's an amazing journey.
He successfully bridged the gap between strict 90s traditionalism and the heavy, unpredictable genre blending of the 2020s. And he's still pushing forward. As of our sources, he is set to co-headline the massive My Kinda Saturday Night Tour with Luke Combs in 2026.
The guy who couldn't even get past the security gate at the Opry is now filling the biggest stadiums in the country.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on regarding Bentley's creative process. Think back to that incredible quote about the Home album.
Oh, the 64 discarded song.
Yeah, the panning for gold. That's 64 days that I can't get back. It makes you wonder, how much of true mastery isn't just about what you ultimately create, but having the sheer courage to throw away 64 days of perfectly good work just to find the great.
It takes a lot of bravery to look at something you poured your soul into, something that is entirely competent, and say, this isn't it yet.
It requires you to be ruthlessly honest with yourself, even when it hurts. It's a lot like that kid staring through the iron baits of the Grand Ole Opry all those years ago. Sometimes, to get to the place you really want to be, you have to be willing to cross the lines, ignore the keep out signs, risk getting banned, and throw away the safe work just to find the jagged, unpredictable path that is uniquely your own.